Hi, I'm Elizabeth,
And I'm Cindy.
and we're here with another Feeding Frenzy for The Four Spiritual Laws of Prosperity by Edwin Gaines, a simple guide to unlimited abundance.
Still on chapter 8.
We are on chapter 8, and we are on number 10.
Feed your spirit.
That's one of my favorites.
How do you feed your spirit?
I feed my spirit in loads of ways.
How?
First of all, following my guidance. You know, I feel better when I follow my guidance. You know, I don't have the internal turmoil that goes on. I don't have the emotional conflicts that go on when I'm not following my guidance. And so, first and foremost, is following my guidance. But then, in the following my guidance, I just naturally seek out things that are going to feed me. You know, whether it's a show that I find interesting, or going to a church service, or reading a story, or listening to a tape, or just finding an uplifting song, like by one of my favorite artists. You know, I just naturally find things that feed me, and that, I think a lot of that has to do with my want to cut out the negativity in my life. You and I both quit watching the news a long time ago.
Just remember when I was
simply because there was nothing on there but negative. Nothing on there but negative. And I thought, you know what? I just don't want,
I haven't missed it.
don't want to have this in my life anymore. No, I haven't missed it at all. And we just naturally tend to look for things that feed us, you know, books that inspire us. And we strike up conversations that lead to other conversations that lead, you know, curiosity-wise to other things that we think, wow, check that out.
Right. Well, the thing I think that one of the best things we've done so far, I think, is to watch TV deliberately.
Yes.
We don't just flip through the channels. We don't even have TV. We flip through the channels. We know what we want to watch, and we either watch it on DVD or on Netflix. It's always a planned event. It's not on board what's on TV.
Yeah.
And I think when we deliberately choose what we're going to watch, then we're automatically choosing more positive stuff because we don't want the negative. Now, that's not to say we're perfect at it. We watch some real duds sometimes.
Well, sure.
And we just veg out in front of the TV just like most people do sometimes, and we just turn on whatever. But I think we're good at that. We're better at that, about being deliberate about what we allow into our minds.
The other thing that you and I both do daily that is imperative to the feeding of ourselves is that quiet time alone.
Yes, definitely.
That
So
quiet
that solitude
time
that we talked about.
That solitude when I can just veg out with God, so to speak.
Exactly.
You know, and have that conversation, set my day, set the tone to my day, and figure out where am I going to go? What's my next step?
The next right.
My next right step. What is it? You know, that gives me the time to ask, where am I at? Is this where I want to be? If this isn't where I want to be, where's it I'm going?
But by the same token, for many years, I didn't have a lot of friends, and I was rather isolated in where I lived, and I had my quiet time, but that's all I had. I didn't have the outreach, and I've learned that, you know, I learned as much or more from contact with you and our other friends, because iron sharpens iron, and you introduce new things. I mean, that's one reason we're doing this, is because when you and I are talking about it, you talk about things I hadn't thought about. And then we get comments from some of them who I hadn't thought about it like that before. You know, and since we are somewhat isolated from a lot of the New Thought kind of stuff, we have to drive quite a ways to go to a church service. And
to meet with a group.
Or to meet with a group of like-minded people, and it makes it a little more difficult. Thank God for the internet, which allows us to connect with some of those people more often. And, you know, I know the kids rag on us, and even some of our friends and family about being on Facebook so much, but that's, in a way, a connection to feed off of other people. There are a lot of inspiring things. I know the internet gets a bad rap for the negativity, but it depends on where you're at on the internet.
Exactly. It depends on the circles that you're in.
TV. There's good stuff on TV. It's not all bad. but you've got to discipline yourself to limit the bad stuff and put in the good stuff. And so it's the same way on the internet. There are a lot of good places.
Well, I know I did a cleanse of my Facebook friends here recently, and you questioned me about it. And it all comes into the same thing. It's what I want to allow in.
Right.
And it comes to a point when that particular person or whatever is just posting things I don't wish to have in my consciousness, or I get tired of seeing, or I'm not gaining anything, and I know they're not gaining anything for me. You know, so there comes a time when I just say, you know what, that just doesn't work for me anymore. I just want to release that. So I decided at that point, this is what I want to have in my surroundings. And I looked at the other day, my group of friends had totally changed. Totally changed. And they are all like-minded where I'm at now.
Right.
You know, there are a few that are left over from years and years and years ago, but they've kind of, I wouldn't say kept up, but they're still within the circle of where I want to be. You know what I'm saying? And once we start changing ourselves on the inside, of course our surroundings start changing. Well, that is not just the physical surroundings, it's also the beings that come in our circle.
Exactly.
You know, and some drop off and some new come in. And I have noticed that that circle is ever changing as well, you know. And it just, when I decided to make that change, it's like, you know what, but this is my circle. And it's what I choose to have in that circle. And when I did that small cleanse, so to speak, of that circle, I just noticed the amount of drama went from here to here. So now I'm just getting, when I get on there now, it's a feeding. And I notice when I post, I'm feeding others. So it's working for me.
Right.
You know, so that's why I did it. That's one of the spiritual things that I do for myself. Is what feeds me.
Right.
Is to know this isn't personal. It really isn't. But they're not where I want to be.
Yep.
So I chose to go through
They're
it.
just not down that same track you're at. So I get that. One of the things I do too is I get quotes every day in my inbox, my email. And those, even though I don't normally take a lot of time to meditate on them, just reading them sometimes is enough to inspire me on something, whatever it happens to be about. Now, a lot of them are not that great, and I just push them away. But, you know, just the little things like that. If you can sprinkle that throughout your day, I think it helps you to refocus on the inspiring parts of life and not maybe break some of the negative part of it up. So it's not all...
Well, and doing these videos
that
feeds us. This is one of the reasons why we decided to do this, because we didn't have a group that was local that we could get together and discuss great things like this book, and the other ones that we've chosen to do. So we opened it up to the internet, you know, and now we have people from all over the world that weigh in and help us as much as they tell us that we're helping them. So it just enabled us to open our circle more. Right. So that was one of the bigger things that we did.
And one thing it's done for me is, we talked about, I think it was yesterday, where I said the word better when I have a deadline. I hate that word deadline, though. It's when I have a date to accomplish it by a goal. Then when we do the videos, we are trying to keep them done at a certain time, and that forces me to read the books that I want to read, but don't make time for them otherwise.
Yeah. It helps you make the time to do it.
It helps me make the time to actually dig into these and not just read through them, but apply them. You know, it's really helped with that. I noticed on all the feeding frenzies we've done, in many cases I've read the books before, but never really digested the books and applied them the way we're applying them now. So it's really, really helped. It also helps to slow it down, because usually when I read a book, I take the time to read that book and I'm going to get through it. And I go through it so fast, I miss a lot of it.
You miss a lot of the meat of it.
Time to digest it. So I've really, really enjoyed the feeding frenzies for that reason. Now, I will admit, sometimes it gets really hard to keep up with work and with this. So we may slack up just a little bit, but I've really enjoyed it. It's really helpful. So what other things are you going to do to feed your spirit. She says to make it a habit each day to turn within and ask for guidance as to what would feed your spirit.
We went, the last service that we went to, church service that we went to was just a couple of days ago. And the minister introduced a brand new book of fables. And the service wasn't over before I was like, oh my God, I gotta get that book. I can't wait for that book.
Well, it's not a new book, it's new to us.
No, it's new to us.
Yeah.
And fables that I had not heard of or different takes on them. So I am anxiously awaiting that to come. I mean, I'm truly excited.
It may turn into another feeding frenzy.
And it might turn into another feeding frenzy, which is exciting to me because then I think, ooh, I'm really going to get to dive into this one.
Yeah.
You know? So I am really excited about that arriving.
Good.
And being able to check it out.
Yeah,
So
good.
that one right now is built of fire.
Right, we're almost done with this book.
Almost.
We've got a couple more days on these self-care things, and then we have one chapter, maybe two, left. One chapter and an epilogue. So we'll be ready to start it.
Yeah. So that's exciting.
It's really good stuff too.
It is good stuff.
Shrink.
Shrink.